This is real life drama in real time. And you're seeing the worst of humanity, and you're seeing the good guys versus the bad guys. And sometimes we cover cases where it is the worst case scenario.
Joining me now is Jesse Weber, an anchor at the Law&Crime network, host of a suite of massively popular shows for Law&Crime, as well as a host at News Nation and SiriusXM Radio, host of Spin Room, a new show for Mediaite, and most importantly, my close personal friend. Jesse Weber, thanks for coming on Press Club.
It's a good thing I added that. I thought that was a nice touch.
It was good.
It was good. No, Aiden, thank you. I didn't know I've made it until I made it on Press Club.
There you go.
I have to tell you, first of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
First of all, great to
On what?
Congratulations on making this show. It's great. I listened to it. I actually caught it live when you were interviewing Sean Hannity.
Okay.
I was listening with my wife, and we're like, this is great. And I was like, I know this guy. No, but it was great, and I want to just congratulate you on your success. It took a while for you to invite me on Press Club. I'm a little insulted. It's fine.
It's been a little while.
But this is a big moment for me, and I'm happy to be a part of it, and I'm happy to now have a show with you guys on Mediaite.
Yes, and I want to talk all about the Mediaite show. First of all, I should note that people who are not cross-viewers of Press Club and the show you host, Sidebar, may not know that this is the studio for both shows with some tweaks to the background. How does it feel being in the interviewee seat as opposed to right here?
Bizarre. I'm not going to lie to you. I don't like it.
You don't like it?
First of all, this is my bad side, and I wouldn't really show this bad side if it wasn't for you. But no, it's good. It's good. You get the better lighting, obviously.
This is amazing lighting.
But it's good.
Well, don't say that. People aren't going to want to come on the show if they know that this is the bad seat.
Listen, I'm honest about what bad side I have, and I'm honest about what strong side I have. I've seen people on here before they look great. For me, actually, it doesn't look that bad. Wait a minute. Now I'm looking at it. Not terrible.
Your tan is robust enough to carry bad lighting. I will give you that.
That's on my resume.
Now, speaking of your resume, that's how I wanted to start this conversation off, because we'll get to the show on Mediaite, and we'll get to your career and what you think of the current media landscape. But you wear a ludicrous number of hats in media, and I listed most of them at the top, I'm sure not all. But that, in many ways, makes you the archetype of the modern success in journalism. You know, it used to be that you'd get a job at, the Potemkin Dispatch in your local town, and then you'd get a job at the Boston Globe after that, and you'd work there for the rest of your life. Now, journalists who are successful, by and large, are entrepreneurs, which is an interesting change in the industry. They do a bunch of different things. They have a bunch of different jobs. That is basically what your career is at this point, I would say. How did you get into that? And was that always the way you saw your career going?
No. And it's interesting. I'll give you a little inside baseball. I love my agent, great agent. When I first joined with her years ago, she's like, look, this is the traditional model. You got to start off in local broadcasting, somewhere in a local city, you build yourself up, then you get to the major networks, and that's how you build it. I said, I'm already in the middle. This is when I joined Law&Crime with Dan Abrams. I was like, I'm already in the middle of a very unique situation. I'm in a very different place than everybody else. I know this seems different. I know this seems unique. I know this is different than the standard way in which people rise, but let's keep following this. I'm not going to go to Peoria, Illinois, no disrespect, but I'm not going to start there. I'm already in this weird environment. And no, so to give everybody a little background about this, I'm a lawyer. I went to law school. I loved law school. I thought it was incredibly interesting. And I said, look, if I'm going to go to law school, I have to give at least the practice. I've heard the only horror stories, but I got to give it a try and see what I liked. Hated it, okay? I'm not going to lie to you. It was a great educational experience. I worked with incredible people. I worked for a massive law firm. So when people talk about big law, I worked big law. And I realized, looking at the partners, their life in 20, 30 years didn't seem quite attractive. It seemed they were working even more hours than the associates. Now, I was always somebody who loved the law. I wanted to talk about it. I liked presenting. I went to acting school, so I kind of was comfortable on camera. And I said, is there a way I can parlay this into entertainment, broadcasting, and hosted a few things in the past, and acted a little bit, and I started making appearances on Fox News, CBS, CNN, legal analyst stuff. And one of the first things that I did is I was on a show with Chris Hansen. It was called Crime Watch Daily. And we were recorded outside in New York City. He's a good friend of mine now. And I fell in love with the media bug. And I said, this might be a way to build a career. And it just so happens, at the time, timing's everything, is when Dan Abrams, you know him very well, started, it was called Law News and then became Law&Crime. And it was supposed to be, you remember Court TV back in the day?
I do.
And
yeah.
Dan used
Made
to work
Dan's
there.
career
Yeah.
with the OJ trial.
He had started this network predominantly online where it was going to cover live trials, and he was looking for hosts. And I found out about it, auditioned, got the part, and I became, for 5 years, the morning host, 9 to 12, every day, 3-hour live show covering big legal cases, live trials, and I did that. And it was such an incredible learning experience, and I was able to parlay my legal career, my legal knowledge, into now broadcasting. Yeah. And when we started, it was very exciting, but we didn't have a ton of eyeballs. It was something new. And I was committed to it. I loved the people that we were working with. And it was really interesting because Johnny Depp Amber Heard happened in 2022. This was a trial that changed everything. Because just to give everybody a sense, when I joined, I think Law&Crime's YouTube presence was maybe 150 to 200,000 subscribers. We're now inching to 7 million. If it wasn't for Johnny Depp Amber Heard, I don't know if we would be there. We got on the ground fast. We got on the ground quick. I was in that courtroom every day for 6 weeks. And this is when I realized we were presenting something different than the other networks, because we were getting in there, out there, providing legal analysis in a way that I don't know the other networks were able to do. And by the way, we were producing so much content on YouTube, clipping it, putting it out, that is when our presence really became known.
And it changed, and correct me if I'm wrong here, the way the company worked, because initially the initial conception of Law&Crime was for it to be a linear network.
Yeah.
Providing, live trial coverage. And was it around the time of the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial where Law&Crime transitioned from being a linear network that you could find on your cable box, which by now sounds very antiquated and is obviously going the way of the dodo, to a YouTube first platform with an enormous following there, plus, the production arm and all the other things that Law&Crime does?
We realized the value of YouTube. We realized the value of social
Was
media.
it around that
It was around
trial?
that time.
Yeah.
And by the way, Sidebar, the show that I host that's on Spotify and YouTube, it started during Johnny Depp Amber Heard. And it was the idea of doing a daily recap. What happened in trial? You missed it? You're not going to be able to watch 8 hours? We'll give you an update. We, at one point, when we started this, okay? Me and Sam Goldberg, good friend of mine, works for the company, used to work for SiriusXM. He and I started this. And I was also working with Anjanette Levy, who's another host. And we were literally like, let's do a recap. At one point, we became the top 20 news podcast in the entire country. It was incredible. People start podcasts every day and we're like, oh, it takes a while. This thing took off because people were so hungry for it. And we realized that when our videos on YouTube were getting 20 million views, oh my gosh, there's something here. The company has transformed. We no longer are in the daily 9 to 5 p.m. trial coverage. We are now a network filled with podcasts, original productions, documentary shows, live reports. It has expanded beyond what I could have imagined. And one of the things I realized is how people are getting their content. It's one thing, older generation, traditional generation, they will still go to the major networks for news. That's not going to change. But for people who are interested in a specific topic, turning on YouTube or turning on a podcast is a much more digestible, intimate way for people to understand what's going on, to get the content that they want, to watch it when they want. And I think that was an incredible learning experience, and it is only growing and growing and growing. And the interesting thing about YouTube is, look, the traditional way was ratings, who's watching the show, You don't know how many people are watching on YouTube. It is incredible when you look at these numbers and you feel the reach, and anybody can watch YouTube. And so I've gotten people coming up to me who I was shocked to learn who has been watching this and the reach of it. It's an incredible medium to be a part of.
And it's fascinating because I think a lot of people that work in traditional media and work at, let's say, CNN, which obviously everyone in the world knows what CNN is.
Yeah.
But the audience for CNN, while still big, is much smaller than a lot of different channels on YouTube that no one's ever even heard of. So I think there's this sort of disconnect between people's perceptions of YouTube and what the audience is like and what the audience actually is. I mean, I can imagine you experienced that when you were doing Sidebar and you would tell people about the show and they might not have ever heard of it, but then you'd get recognized in the street.
Yeah.
As happens to you quite often, from what I understand.
So I'm not I'm not a recognizable face like in the media world. But when I got recognized, when I went on vacation in Italy, when I'm on the plane, when I'm walking down the streets and I'm seeing people, and by the way, I'm not going to name names, but like there are celebrities who've been following a lot of the content. It is shocking, and this is what opened up. I'm going to give you numbers here. This is not to brag.
Yeah. I want numbers. This more than
this
anything.
is not to brag. This is not to say, oh my gosh. I'm giving everybody a perspective. When you look at cable news numbers, and congratulations to the cable news number, the cable shows that do phenomenal. But what's a great number? 1.5 million, 2 million, 3 million?
Yeah.
Okay. Sidebar has been averaging in the past 3 months 30 million views a month. 300 million views last year. That is incredible numbers. And when you put those videos up and you're seeing people engaging with it, the whole world has changed, the whole landscape. And I'll tell you what what really changed everything. We'll talk about true crime. Law&Crime is not a political program, okay? We always tried to steer clear of politics. In a way, while people were getting, we need a break from all politics, go to, Law&Crime. But when Trump was almost assassinated in July, we had a conversation, should we cover it? It is a big crime. Let's dip our toe into it. We were getting unbelievable numbers every time we posted a video, million. And what we were offering, and again, not to brag, I think it became something that obviously was politicized, like everything gets politicized. Right. But what we did was we tried to cut through all that and focus on the evidence, focus on the crime. We interviewed Secret Service members, FBI, lawyers. We were trying to get to the meat of it. And when we did that, our response was, thank you for giving it to us exactly what we need, like telling us what we want. And that was what we realized worked out well.
So this is what I love about Sidebar. A lot of what exists on YouTube is slop. If I had $1 for every time I've clicked on a video and it's some guy with a microphone talking with absolute certainty about a complex issue, despite having no idea what he's talking about and being outright wrong, I'd be as rich as a YouTuber. Sidebar is brilliant in that it is a wonderful exception to that. It's deeply researched, it's all fact-checked, and you get into pretty complex issues, whether it's a lawsuit or new legal filing, a day in court, in a way that is very in-depth and sharp but still entertaining. Why do you think that works? Because that stuff typically doesn't work on YouTube right now.
So a couple of things with that. First of all, we have an incredible team that works on it, and we make sure we put in the work, no matter what. Every episode is about 20, 30 minutes. That's the goal. We want to really do a deep dive, because what happens? First of all, I'm a legal analyst on News Nation, so I'm part of the cable machine as well. When you do a hit on, let's say, Johnny Depp, Amber Heard, okay? It's a 5-minute hit.
Yeah,
you
can't really go into 4 minutes and 30 seconds, that's it, and you're out.
People are hungry for understanding the law. They're hungry in understanding the issues, the arguments. So if I can take 20, 30 minutes to break down a popular topic like Sean Combs, the latest filing, they want to see it. And at one point, this is what's fascinating, okay? When Sean Combs was hit with his first lawsuit back in 2023, it's a big deal. Oh my gosh, Sean Combs is being hit. Did about a 20-minute episode where I broke it down. There was no court footage. I literally just broke it down, me on camera. I was like, we'll see if it does well. Yeah. Over 1 million views, over 1.5 million. And it was just me talking and explaining it. And we said, oh, there's an appetite for this. There's an appetite for just explaining it. And there's so many videos out there on YouTube, even aside from the legal context or the political context, where people are breaking down TV shows or movies.
Yeah.
Just that understanding. It's a different kind of education. And I think there's a value in that. Now, in terms of true crime, in terms of the growth in true crime, amazing. And I will tell you, this is not something that I even had a particular interest in growing up. I wasn't a criminal defense lawyer. I was a litigator. I did intellectual property law. I was interested in true crime here and there. And then as I got into it, I really understood what the fascination was. There is such a human element to this. To see these stories, this is real life drama in real time. And you're seeing the worst of humanity, and you're seeing the good guys versus the bad guys. You want a sense of justice. You want to understand the human psyche. You understand why people can do this. And there's a fear. I think one of the values about what we do at Law and Crime is we bring awareness to issues that is important for people to understand and hear. Whether it's somebody saying, I appreciate you shedding a light on that victim. I appreciate you shedding a light on the family. Or I appreciate you bringing up this issue because something similar in my life. We deal with all different kinds of cases. I think there is a value to that, and it's our privilege to be able to do that.
How do you approach the preparation for the show, Sidebar specifically? What is your process for it? Do you treat it like any other news story you would reporting it out, or like how do you get ready for the show?
I try to think about what the audience wants to hear.
Okay.
And so we go through these legal filings, or we go through a day in court. We take out the most important moments. But one of the things I value, and one of the things I try to do, hopefully I do it well, is I try to break it down in an easily digestible way. Law is complicated. I went to law school. I practiced. It's complicated. But if I can present it in a way for people to understand, that's the trick. So we go through these 60-page lawsuits. How do we convert it into 20, 30 minutes, giving you everything you need to know? I'm reading it, researching the law, cross-referencing it with other things. And by the way, I'll give you an example. So Sean Combs, again, just bringing up, he was hit with a second superseding indictment. It's like amended indictment. Yeah. And there was a part of it where they added a little context, and I did something that I didn't see other people doing. I kind of looked at the past cases that he's facing, because he's facing over 30 lawsuits, and I said, is there somebody in that lawsuit that may be a potential witness or victim in this case that they're not identifying? And I kind of thought about that. So taking what we've already done, educating the audience, breaking down something new, it's a lot of preparation. It's late nights, early mornings, breaking news. But again, we have a fantastic team that works on it.
And then tell me about Prime Crime, which is another show that you have for Law and Crime.
So Prime Crime is like our version of Dateline, okay? And basically, it started during the pandemic because we were a live trial network, and there were no trials during the pandemic. Courts were closed. So we figured, what do we do? Well, we have all of this trial footage. We have all this content. Can we create a true crime documentary show? And during the pandemic, executive produced it, hosted it. I did it all myself with one editor. And we basically put together these 30-minute episodes. They're now 45-minute episodes of telling a story from beginning to end. And thankfully, blew up on YouTube, like did incredibly well. And what started as me and like one editor is now over 10, 12 people, a team of 10 to 12 people. And we're really scrappy. We produce 2 episodes a month. We're about to produce 3 to 4 episodes. I'm incredibly proud of this team, but they're evergreen episodes. So just talking about, again, not to brag, but just to give you an idea, over 5 million, 6 million views per episode. There's an appetite for it. There's an appetite, because one of the things we do is we present both sides of the story. Okay. So prosecution, defense, we interview the victims' family members, law enforcement, defense attorneys, and it's a show that literally I'm very proud of because I started it several years ago.
I read once that the audience for true crime is mostly women.
Yeah.
I can imagine in your experience with your hair that remains the case. Is that true, and do you have any idea why?
Well, I will say this. Yes, a big percentage of the audience are women. However, if you want to categorize true crime as also police interrogations or police body cam, that's actually male-oriented. Look,
Yeah, a bald cop with Oakley sunglasses interrogating someone.
people like
Guys
it.
are going to watch that.
Look, I think that there's a number of reasons why that is. It's also, I think, in terms of where in the country people are watching, and if they're home or they're working from home, or they're when we post the episodes. But I think it's also this idea of, unfortunately, we deal with a lot of cases of male perpetrators and female victims, and trying to understand that human psyche. And sometimes we cover cases where it is the worst case scenario. It's that stranger coming into a house in the middle of the night. It's that person that you meet online as the worst nightmare, serial killers. These are, again, human interest pieces that are quite scary. And I don't know if it trends more towards a female audience because they may fear what's out there and trying to understand what's out there. But yes, there is a trend towards female audiences.
Are there hazards to telling these kinds of stories? I can imagine you can fall into, if somebody's a victim of a crime or something, doesn't want the story to be told or something like that, that it can be sort of tricky to navigate.
I will tell you, unfortunately, if you look online, there's a lot of people who exploit these stories, and it's a delicate balance.
Yeah.
I think it's a privilege to be able to tell these stories. It's important to. We have had victims' family members who have really thanked us for shedding a light on this and giving a voice to the person that they lost. But I will also tell you, the way we do it is very important, in the sense you have to make sure, yes, it's a form of entertainment because you have to keep people watching and engaged, so you have to add some of that. But at the same time, you have to be fair and you have to be honest about this story and explain who the victim is, what their life was, what the loss is like. But you do have people on social media and YouTube who exploit it, and they make it more entertainment focused, and they engage in rumors and speculation to drive clicks, and we try to avoid that. Now, of course, there are times when it's a very difficult subject matter. We wonder whether or not we should cover it. Legally, we're allowed to, but we do get into that position. If there is a story that somebody is like, please don't mention this, we'll take a second look and say, maybe we need to pause on this and not actually do it at this moment. But what we try to do is be very careful to be, respect the victims and respect the loss, because all of these situations are people's worst nightmares. It's their worst experience in their life, and you have to be careful of that.
Yeah, this is one of the things I bang on this show about a lot is, while it's great that we've had a democratization of media, and it means that you can have a lot of different media, independent media outlets and personalities, it also means that guardrails are seriously damaged, if not removed. And, one of the horrifying things I've seen in this genre, I don't know if you've seen them, but it's these like YouTubers who find people who basically trap people who have been accused of talking to underage kids online and then beat them up.
Yeah, it's a problem.
And it's like that. It's like barbaric.
I talked to Chris Hansen about that all the time.
Yeah, because he did that in a way that I think probably when he first started doing it, and now would be sort of frowned upon in polite society, maybe because it was a little bit, it was using this stuff for entertainment, but this stuff is horrifying.
Well, he still does this.
Yeah.
And he does it the right way.
The right way.
The right way.
Yeah.
Not only because you don't want to create a danger for anyone there, including, by the way, the person who
hasn't been tried with anything. And,
But from a legal point of view, if you don't incorporate law enforcement and you do this on your own, you are tainting a potential prosecution of this person. That evidence will be tainted. It will not come in. So what he does so well, and every time we have him on Sidebar, he emphasizes this, because unfortunately you're seeing this more and more and more on social media, people doing these like trap situations, is you think you're really doing good in the long run. Not only you're creating a danger, but if you really want justice, if you really think you're capturing potential child predators, this is not the way to go about it, because they will never be charged. They will not have their day in court the way you're doing it. So it's very important for journalists to make sure they are coordinating it properly with the authorities in order for this case, for evidence to be preserved the right way, for it to be handled the right way. Because in the end of the day, for people to do that, I understand why they're doing it, right? Driving clicks.
Yeah.
It could lead to disastrous results.
You mentioned earlier that the sort of the way that people typically get into this business, get into the news business, the television news business, is they'll go to local news. They'll start in local news.
Yep.
They'll start at some NBC affiliate.
I did that, by the way. I did news. I was on News 12 Long Island.
News 12 Long Island.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I am a long time as a couple year Long Islander.
Yeah. Well, where local matters.
There you go.
Saw that?
Wow. I might have watched you on air once when I was younger.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of the people that are now very famous anchors on air started in local news, got plucked by NBC, ABC, CNN to be reporters, be correspondents, and they would go abroad, be war reporters, and now they're sitting in a studio and anchoring major shows. It is another route, what you did, which is you also did the local news thing, but you were also a lawyer.
Yeah.
Do you think journalists should go to law school?
It's a great question. So I loved law school. I think the education, and by the way, I think that's why you see so much an interest in law, and you see so much interest in law and crime, is because people are interested in understanding how our legal system works, how our justice system works. I think every college should have a mandatory introductory law class, contracts, tort law, constitutional law, property. I just think it's important to understand. Criminal law. It definitely helps. It definitely helps. Why? Because you don't want to jump to conclusions about why something happened or why something didn't happen. You want to understand the legal process. And I think when you talk about it with President Donald Trump, obviously he's raised a number of legal issues where it's become a question, and it was his right to do, but I think people who were so supportive of him automatically assumed that the legal process was tainted and that that he was being treated differently. And this is not about why he was charged, but actually once he was charged, what happened. And I think understanding a little bit more about how the legal process works will help. And particularly because so much of the news is legal based. I'm on News Nation. I'm on there all the time. There is so many legal issues. So I think it's a value for journalists to have a basic understanding of how the legal system works. And not to say they don't. I will tell you, I hear a number of reporters and anchors who are quite conversant and quite knowledgeable about how the legal system works and legal issues. So I think that's also built up over a career and uncovering those cases as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes up more than almost anything as a subject. And when you are a journalist and when you are reporting on a story, whether it's the rigor of the story, whether it's going to pass legal muster, whether it's going to get you slapped with a defamation lawsuit, or just dealing with legal issues, which, as you note, especially in politics these days, are a huge, huge story.
Yeah.
And I think that's why legal contributors have become stars.
Yeah.
Ellie Honig over at CNN. And
he's amazing. Ellie's amazing.
Yeah.
Ellie's amazing.
When you look at the sort of constellation of legal analysts on air, as one yourself, who do you think is doing it well and who do you think is doing it badly?
Well, I won't name names about who's doing it badly, but I will tell you who I think.
Demand you name names about who doing it.
I will tell you who I think is doing it great.
Okay, let's hear it.
Like Ellie Honig.
Okay.
Right? And let me tell you what Ellie does well.
Yeah, why? And we'll just deduce from what you say who you're talking about doing it badly.
So what does Ellie do well? Ellie doesn't jump to the conclusion before giving the legal analysis. Okay? He doesn't go in and saying, how do I make this look like Trump's going to lose? How do I make that? No. He's an honest broker. He will give it straight. He's on CNN, and he has taken positions that are supportive of Donald Trump's legal positions. And I actually personally think CNN is a lot more fair than people give it credit for. But anyway,
I agree with you on that.
I think it gets a bad rap. But anyway, so what he does is when you look at a legal issue, if you're a legal analyst, analyze the actual issue. Don't go in with trying to make the argument for a side that you want, unless that's what the goal is. Unless the goal is, hey, listen, your job right now is to present an argument that's in favor of what our audience wants. And I'm not saying that's what happens, but don't do that. Be honest, and that's how you build up credibility. So if you go in and you say, listen, this is what I think the strengths are, these are kind of the weaknesses, and don't make a blanket conclusion unless you're really, really confident. Oh, this is definitely going to be thrown at. Oh, this is definitely going to be dismissed. Unless you really believe it and have a good argument to say so, I think you have to have a degree of caution and don't go in with a conclusion yet. Ellie also has an incredible way of breaking it down for people to understand in an easily digestible way. Again, I tried to do that as well. I think that's sometimes you can get bogged down in the law and you realize, wait a minute, the audience is probably so lost. Like, do they even know what emotion is? And I'm not saying it's not about the intelligence of the audience. It's like, it may seem simple to us, but it's also people, if I said to 10, 20 people down on the street, what is the standard of proof in a criminal trial? Will they all know it's proof beyond a reasonable doubt? I mean, maybe, but again, you have to make sure that people understand what is happening because that's why they tune in. They tune in to understand what's happening so that they can appreciate it, they can value it, and then they can also communicate with others in an intelligent way about it.
You know, the amount of times that I would watch, especially when Trump's cases were going on, Ellie Honig say, you know, I think Trump's going to win this at the Supreme Court. And he would get screamed at by everyone else on the panel. Yeah. And then he would end up being right 3 months later. Yeah. And he is one of the few, I think, clear-eyed of the analysts on air. So that's to his great credit. You are as well, too.
Well, thank you.
I'm a big fan of your legal analysis
By the way,
on air.
Not only because I work for him, but Dan Abrams is
obviously and similar to Ellie in he has the same skill of Ellie.
But he's opinionated. Like he would give his opinion. And
but that's the best. It's when they give a perspective that is not tainted by partisan.
And if you listen to them for a long period of time, you will realize that opinion is not based on politics. It's based on the facts. And like Dan has taken positions that are, you know, favorable to one side, favorable to another, and it's hard to pin him down where he stands, and that's the way you want to be.
So you've worked in traditional media for a lot of your career, and I think you have a very good sense of people, the audiences don't always understand how things work behind the scenes. Mm-hmm. You know, I get asked the question a lot of, you know, are people in media told what to say? If you work at CNN, you have to toe a certain line, and you know, what drives, let's say, a legal analyst to express a partisan opinion that may harm their credibility down the line. What do you think are the biggest misconceptions among audiences about the way traditional media, let's say television media, works, and why people get information in a certain way from television media?
There are times when you are booked as a guest, you are asked, I want you to do this, will you take this position? We have somebody arguing this position, will you argue this position? If you feel comfortable with it, sure. I remember early on I was asked, would you argue this position? And I was incredibly uncomfortable with it, and I didn't believe in it, and I said no. And because I know what the optics would look like, and I didn't believe in it enough. But I will tell you, particularly on my time on News Nation, I am never, ever, 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 ever told, I want you to say it like this, I want you to take this position. It's, what do you think? And then I give my opinion about it one way or another. And look, I can't speak for other guests. I can't speak for other legal analysts. But this is a career too. And I wonder at times, whether you are a legal analyst or a political analyst or whatever, if you go on a certain show and you take a position, hopefully you believe in it, you're not just saying it to say it, but they're taking a position they know will make waves, will gain attraction, will be kind of dynamic and controversial. But again, if that's what you want to do, great. And if that's what you think the audience wants, great. But I also think that there's more value in being honest and being a fair broker about it. And by the way, it was funny because on the show that I do with you guys now on Mediaite, we did this whole thing about how Hakeem Jeffries was basically like, the Republicans are running scared and Trump's numbers are running scared. And
that speech that he did, or it was a video.
Yeah.
You know, it's just because Democratic voters are demanding that Democrats do something.
Yeah.
So he's like, I'm going to put out this video talking about how the Republicans are running scared.
It's ridiculous optimism and spin. Whereas Alyssa Slotkin came on and go like, we're in trouble.
Yeah.
Like, we need to figure out what's going on. Like, that's more value add. That makes you more credible.
Yes.
And I think that's, by the way, just to circle back with something. Do you want to know why I think one of the reasons YouTube is working so well?
Yeah.
Authentic. It's authenticity. I think people look at that and say, you weren't handpicked by a corporate executive to do this. You did it because you believed in it. You did it. You built up a following because people know who you are. They relate to you. You're being yourself. That's one of the things I think people value more than anything. And that is something that has grown on YouTube, is that sense of authenticity. people and being yourself more than anything is incredibly important in the entertainment business, the broadcast media space, because people will then trust you. If they know what you're about and you're not putting on an act, you're not putting on a show, that's why you see growth in that market.
And you mentioned the sort of false promises of media, and I think that one of the things that hit MSNBC so hard when Trump got elected in November was the fact that for years MSNBC had been telling their audience that the walls were closing in, that Trump was somehow going to face accountability. And that was a very, very successful business model from 2016 onwards. There were the impeachments, there were the criminal trials, he was voted out of office in 2020. And when he managed to defy all of those arguments and return to office, I think a lot of MSNBC viewers were like, what the hell just happened? For years, we've been told that that the walls were closing in, that he was about to face accountability. And when they realized that the people that they were listening to that were telling them that, and I'm not endorsing this view because, I think a lot of MSNBC hosts were actually, reporting the correct view of things at the time, that they were, in a lot of ways, Donald Trump was facing an impeachment, he was facing criminal trials. But I think viewers were disillusioned by it. And I don't know that YouTube does that any better. I think you note that authenticity is a really important thing on YouTube, different from, factual rigor. I think Joe Rogan's a very authentic personality.
Yeah.
People really like him and he seems really true. But half the things he says are incorrect, right? Or, if you put them in front of a fact checker, they wouldn't pass muster. How do you view that on YouTube? Do you think that's a problem that so much information that people are getting now from these independent creators, and I'm not talking about you obviously because your stuff is so incredibly rigorously fact checked, but so much of it is just bad information now? You
know who will tell you first?
Oh.
The comments, right? Okay. I
mean, if you get something wrong, the commenters.
Yeah. And by the way, it could be something like by the way, so when the whole Brian Koberger,
yes,
the guy,
I recall him,
the Idaho alleged killer, when that story first broke, it was in Moscow, Idaho.
Okay.
It's spelled Moscow. You know how many people said Moscow? I did. Moscow, Idaho. Moscow, Idaho. Admit it, Jesse, you're wrong. It's Moscow. It's Moscow. Now that's a pronunciation, but if you're wrong, or if you're not looking at something, I get immediate comments. I get immediate, literally on the comments on the YouTube video, but immediate people reach out. It is instant feedback. Instant feedback. And I think that's also something that's kind of unique.
Yeah.
I don't know what it was like 10 years ago when somebody would say something. I mean,
cable news, you don't. I mean, you get yelled at. You get some emails.
Yeah,
you probably
but this is different.
Yeah, getting the direct feedback from the audience is an interesting.
And by the way, with MSNBC, let me just circle back really with that. If Trump didn't win the election,
vindicated.
No, if he didn't win the election, he was in really bad legal trouble.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I think that if
do you think he would have gone to jail if he had
for the classified documents?
The classified documents case.
The other Jack Smith one, the federal election interference case. Yep, I think it was a really strong case against him. Now he had, by the way, and let me say two things can be true at once.
Right.
The way he got out of it, going to the Supreme Court, and that was entirely his legal right to do. Okay, right. People he gamed the system. Nope, no, he didn't. He appealed it. He raised the right issues. You might disagree with the Supreme Court's immunity decision, okay, but every which way he delayed it is brilliant legal maneuvering, and it was his right to do.
Yeah.
Yes, he has the resources to be able to do it. Maybe other criminal defendants wouldn't, but then again, I don't know if everybody would be charged with the same crimes because not everybody's the President of the United States, but it was his right to do that. But I also believe that if he didn't win the election, winning the election was his best defense, I think he was in some serious legal jeopardy.
Speaking of, about a year before the election, on this show, Ellie Honig told me, and at the time nobody was really talking about this, if Trump wins the election, all of these cases go away.
Yes.
And everyone at the time was like, oh my God, really? This could all, and that was it. I mean, he dispatched of them so easily. And it's kind of crazy because one of the cases, when you read it, he really did try to steal an election.
Well, it might have been, look, everybody's entitled to a legal defense, and I think there could have been an issue in terms of proving intent.
Right.
There was some damning evidence against him, the alleged,
elector
fake
schemes,
electors,
calling
the
up
call.
Brad Raffensperger.
There was definitely a very colorable and potentially winnable case for the prosecution. But he also could have presented interesting legal arguments as well. I mean, one of the things.
Well, but I'm not making a point that he would have won or lost at a legal level. I'm making more of a political point. That a man who did that was reelected president.
People don't care.
Nobody gives a shit.
It's not like, it's not, because you know how, okay, let me
I thought people would care.
No, here's the problem. You're in the space. I'm in the space. I'm breaking this down every day. Do you know how many people average, like, I don't get the case. You know, explaining the New York federal case to people, like the New York state case to people, was like the most, they still didn't understand it. Like, what did he do wrong? I don't, explain to me. And even when you present it, they're like, okay.
Am I supposed to care?
It's not like he committed a murder.
Right.
It's not like he committed a sexual assault, although, I mean, that was a civil case, but it wasn't something that was so easily digestible. You could say, oh my gosh, that, I get it, I'm turning on him because.
Well, we also just live in a totally different media space. There were probably 100 things, including these cases, that Trump did in his first term, that if any other president in modern American history had done one of those things,
yes,
they would have gotten impeached. Their approval rating would have been 15%, and they would have ended their political career in disgrace. Trump created, through force of his own being and through picking the right fights with the press, insulation around himself.
Well, it was also, I think it was also the dissatisfaction that people had and the idea they didn't have a viable alternative on the left, and that was a big problem.
Well, I mean, there are two numbers, I think, that show why Kamala Harris lost the election. 70% of Americans thought that the country was on the wrong track.
Yeah.
You don't win re-election when 70% of Americans think the country's on the wrong track. And inflation.
Yeah.
That's it.
They didn't care about, did he have documents that he didn't turn over to the FBI?
To be fair, I forget the details of some of these scandals. Yeah. Somebody asked me what the first impeachment was the other day. I remember, but it took a little
people
hot
confused
second.
it. Was one about Ukraine?
One was about Ukraine.
It was like they
one was the beautiful call. Beautiful call with Zelensky.
And it just matters to look. Here's the thing: under the law, when Trump got convicted in New York, people were like, "Oh my gosh!" By the way, I fill in for Dan on Sirius XM, right?
Yeah.
So when I fill in for him, and that was going on, I got a call every day. If he's convicted, he can't be the president, right? I was like, no, he can still be the president. The Constitution permits it. And so I think there was this idea, well, it'll prevent him. Nope, not at all.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think one of the problems with the current media landscape is the way people get their news is not, first of all, we don't live in a monoculture anymore where everyone gets their news from one place. There are advantages to that. There are problems with it. Second, I don't think people are spending as much time consuming news as they used to. So, people aren't sitting down in front of the television and watching nightly news on NBC, at least in the numbers that they used to. People aren't reading the New York Times back to front. People are sort of getting morsels of information. I think a lot of people are getting information on social media through memes.
Or X, or just like quick
just a
headlines.
Quick little bite. Maybe you misread it.
Yeah.
And so our perceptions are sort of like, we have this like head full of just like perceptions of news without actually understanding news.
Can I tell you what's worse?
What?
The advent of AI, and also people being able to manipulate videos, manipulate commentary.
Yes.
You don't know what's true or not. You really don't. And it's getting worse and worse. So do people have the time to verify things? No, they just chat, they send it off, it gets people feeling, and that's a problem.
I've shared stuff and then I realized that it's not true. And I'm like, oh crap, I gotta like go back and apologize, and I look like an idiot. Check.
You?
Yeah,
no.
too.
8 o'clock.
Gotta check your sources. Wow. So when you think about, well, let's talk about media and politics, because this is something that you're going to be tackling.
Yeah.
On
you didn't want to talk fashion and politics?
We're going to get there. That's one of the.
We'll save that for last.
The last of your many hats that we're going to talk about. But the show that you are going to be hosting for Mediaite debuted this week. It's called Spin Room.
Current title, working title.
Yeah. It's a real blast. It's great. It's
Thank you.
Funny. It's entertaining. It's informative, and everyone should go check it out on Mediaite's YouTube page, and like and subscribe, of course. What can you tell us about the new show? What are you going to be doing every week?
there is so much content out there. There are so many things, like viral clips that happen at press conferences, things Trump's being asked here and there, guests on the major cable networks, things that people say on podcasts. And if you go on Mediaite.com, a lot of that is presented there, and it's great. But people don't have time to watch everything that's going on. And it is incredibly entertaining and informative about what's happening. So what we try to do every week, and we're going to do it at least 2 times a week, maybe more, is to take some of the big clips that are happening and show them to you, break it down, but also say, what was the through line? Like, what was happening this week? Because as you'll notice, it feels like every week there's a theme. There's something going on. And so we're going to break it down for everybody about what the top viral clips were, how it matters in the overall scheme. And I think it's, for me, it's interesting because I don't get a chance to talk politics that much, but also it's a fun show, okay? I think people take politics a lot of times, and it can be so stressful. People's emotions are wrapped up in it. We try to have a little bit more fun with it, and it's great. I'm so happy to be a part of the Mediaite team to do it. And what I think one of the things too is, we talked about it, Hakeem Jeffries and Alyssa Salkind, there's so much spin out there.
Yeah.
Like, everybody's trying to spin a narrative, and we're like going to add a little bit more context to what they're saying, and so people can understand that's not right. I mean, again, I'm more of the middle guy. I'm trying to be moderate. So the idea of, if you're seeing these kind of extreme beliefs, what are they really doing here? What are they really saying, and what the truth is? So we're trying to do that and putting it up on YouTube.
What I love about it is that you're basically taking, Mediaite's purview, right? What we cover on the site every day, and you're doing commentary on it and cutting through the spin. Obviously, that's the sort of theme of the show. And I think that's in short supply these days. As we noted, everyone is just constantly just like scrolling, getting little bites of, information and commentary from people. And it's very hard to see that stuff in context. You get, a lawmaker saying something absurd. You don't know whether it's true or not.
Yeah.
And so having a show like this that punctures that pokes fun at people across the ideological spectrum, I think is going to be very useful for viewers, but also extremely entertaining.
So what we did, like this week on the first episode, is we took clips from Fox News. We also had clips from NBC, and what the big theme was: how are reporters actually approaching Donald Trump and the Trump administration? If they want to get answers out of them, it's not the days of just asking a question. They have to be very creative, and whether it's poking the bear a little bit, pushing back a little bit, buttering him up a little bit. Even RFK Jr., there was a part about that too. I think the way that the media and the White House press corps and journalists are approaching the Trump administration to get answers, because we're all trying to get transparency from the government, understanding what they're doing. Can we find common ground? That is what the theme was for this week. And you will see, even from a Peter Doocy or Maria Bartiromo or Kelly O'Donnell, or the way they're doing it is I personally think very strategic and very interesting.
It's funny you say that, because one recurring complaint I get from people about the media very often centers on the questions that are asked in the briefing room.
Yeah.
And I always defend questions asked in the briefing room, whether they are sort of perhaps generous in a way that ekes out an interesting response, or overly hostile, because the point is to elicit information. And very often a way to do that is to ask an overly aggressive question, because it prompts a response that might, shed some kernel of information from the, spokesperson whose jobs it is to not give you any more information than they're officially allowed to. And so I will always defend the way people ask questions like that. Then again, when it comes to interviews with Trump, particularly on Fox News, they have a tendency to be a little bit more sycophantic. And one thing that you really pointed out in this, which I loved, is that Maria Bartiromo actually asked some tough questions.
She did. In
her interview with President Trump, which is crazy because she's one of the more relentless hype machines for Trump.
But the fact that she built up that goodwill, and the fact that before she goes into the interview, she goes, "Thank you so much for what you've done for women."
All that you've done for women, yeah.
But then she goes in and she hits him with questions you would think it wasn't Fox News, and really tough questions. And I wonder, Did his guard go down a little bit?
Right.
But I will tell you, one of my favorite clips, and I'm not going to give away everything, but one of my favorite clips was from Michael Birnbaum from Washington Post. So he asked a question to President Trump on Air Force One, and he was asking about Ukraine and Russia. And he said, do you think that Vladimir Putin is disrespecting you by attacking Ukraine? And I was like, what an interesting way to frame the question, because we know President Trump is very big on disrespect, including recently. So if you frame it as, is he disrespecting me? Huh.
It's like identifying the one thing that Trump cares about and ascribing it to the person that he's been defending.
Yeah. Now, you'll see how it worked out, but in case you haven't seen it. But I thought that was fascinating.
Right.
And that's like unique ways to ask him questions moving forward, because we have a better sense of President Trump now than we did back in 2016.
Totally. Now, one thing that I can't wait for you to tackle on the show is not just the traditional media outlets and the way that they cover the news, but also the independent media and their various melodramas. You know, it's basically the Wild West now. There's this vast galaxy of talkers. And as we noted, they have, in many cases, bigger audiences than the traditional media.
Sure.
Who do you listen to any of these people regularly, and who do you plan on focusing on the show?
We'll see what happens, but I mean, look, how do you not listen to Joe Rogan? I will tell you this much, for all of his controversy and for all of the things that he gets wrong, he is so compelling to listen to for 3 hours. And even when he repeats things, like on a week-to-week, day-to-day basis, just the way he interacts with these guests and you hear things from them, and again, it's that authenticity. It's a conversation you wouldn't get on traditional media.
Yeah.
It's so value added. And you take, look, there are things that are said as somebody who's in the legal space, and when he talks about cases or things, I'm like, this is wrong.
That must make you lose your mind.
Yeah, I'm like, it's wrong, it's wrong. But I'm like, you know what? Take it for what it is.
Yeah.
And I think that you see that, and you wonder, why was it built up so much? Why do people value it? Now, there's certain people who are looking for a certain narrative, a certain subject, and they're like, he's giving it to me, I'll just keep coming back for it. But I think even people who don't, it was the same thing with Howard Stern back in the day.
Yeah.
Remember the movie Private Parts? It was a great scene. They said, I don't remember the numbers, but they were like, the average Howard Stern listener listens for like 5 minutes, okay? The people who hate Stern listen for 20 minutes because they want to know what he's going to say next. That's the same thing. People are, no matter if they don't like the content or they don't like the performer, they're going to listen. And I think, look, for all of his faults, I think he's incredible talent. He's important in the media landscape, and how could you not listen to people like him?
Yeah. Anyone else that you plan on skewering?
My goal is not to skewer.
I want to see you skewer, though.
My goal is not to skewer. My goal is to have an honest response to what we're seeing.
Okay.
And where it comes, we shall see, but I'm sure the people that put on more spin are going to be prime people to talk about.
Targets, yeah. We could call it the in the washing machine. Or in the dryer, I guess.
Is that, you like that better than the spin room?
No, but they go in the dryer when they're being...
So really like spin cycle, dryer,
where there's
permanent press, things like that.
Yeah, you should host the show from a laundromat.
Yeah, well, that's... Okay, yeah, well.
That's why I'm in this seat.
Yeah.
You also host a show that deals with the fashion world that I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about. Tell us about that show.
So the first thing is I host it with my father.
Which I love.
Mark Weber. It's called Always in Fashion. It's on WOR. It's a part of iHeartMedia. We used to be a part of WABC. Now, my father is, he's had quite the career in the fashion apparel industry. He was a corporate executive.
Didn't he run Condé, I mean not Condé,
Louis Vuitton.
LVMH America?
Louis Vuitton Moet Hennessy. So
that's a hell of a title, yeah.
He ran Donna Karan. He ran a company called Thomas Pink, the dress shirts. He ran a company with Bono from U2. Before that, he was the CEO of Phillips Van Heusen and PVH, so they owned Calvin Klein, now own Tommy Hilfiger, things like that. So he had quite a storied career in the fashion apparel industry. I personally didn't go into it. My brother did. He went into the fashion industry. But he started this show because after he retired, he wrote a book, and it was called Always in Fashion, kind of like a business life lessons, and it transformed into a radio show. And he never told us he wanted to be on the radio, but he wanted to be on the radio, and he launched it, and it was incredible. And I came in one day to joke around with him. I was talking about like Uniqlo, which is one of my favorite brands. And the program director was like, who was that? And he's like, oh, it was my son. He's like, well, you should hire him and like be your co-host. And we've been doing it since 2016, and we have a great rapport, very close to my father. And by the way, what he does is, we have our back and forths. I'll provide some of the legal aspects, but he looks at political issues through a business lens, and he actually had a working relationship with President Trump back in the day. And he looks at things a little bit, from a different perspective. We don't agree on a lot of things, but we also agree on other things. And I think it's just a fun dynamic. We talk about business, fashion, life, and it's a fun show.
It's funny. I wrote a piece for The Spectator, which is this magazine I contribute to occasionally, about how the fashion world is embracing the Trumps more than they did in 2016.
They have to.
They have to. There's no choice now, especially because, in a weird way, the Trumps have become sort of counterculture, which is crazy, but they have.
Really?
Yeah.
Sure.
Oh, for sure.
Interesting.
A lot of it's the sort of crass manosphere is all very in on Trump, and his support amongst young people has gone up considerably.
Yeah.
Because Democrats in a lot of ways became the establishment, at least in the eyes of voters.
Yeah.
And Trump is the sort of barbarian at the gates. And I also think that the fashion has gotten a little bit better from
He's got to close the jacket.
Close the jacket
And the tie's too long. Got to close
the tie
the jacket.
and the sort of shiny silk tie and he affixes it with Scotch tape in the back.
Is that true? I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's photos of it.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know.
As someone who dresses up to go on air,
Yeah.
Give me your top 3 brands for an aspiring television journalist.
Okay, well, Ralph Lauren is the
Can't beat Ralph.
creme de la creme.
Yeah.
You go from Polo all the way to Purple Label, and it's just phenomenal.
The suit, the fit on the suits is incredible.
It's great. Uniqlo. Not in every city, but
Okay.
very big in New York. I think they have at least 2 or 3 locations. That is fast casual.
Yep. But good quality.
Yeah, it's great quality.
Yeah.
And it's almost like Zara, but it's from Japan. Discovered it several years ago.
Yeah.
I think I spent 3 hours in that store.
You know what I like about that store?
What?
They got the bins.
Yeah.
You throw the clothes in,
Yeah.
and it knows what you're getting. And
There's no checkout associate. You just
crazy.
do it yourself. It is
Japanese have figured most things out.
It's incredible how it knows that.
It knows it. It knows what you're putting in the box.
I could take 3 sweaters on
Throw
top
them
of
in.
each other.
Adds it
knows
up.
Takes me a second. I'm like, well, how many did I take?
Yeah,
It knows
longer,
everything.
yeah.
Incredible store.
We're going to be replaced.
This is Uniqlo, by the way.
Okay, very
And-
nice.
Yeah, this is Uniqlo. Can I give you 4?
Yeah,
Can I give you 4 stores?
of course.
Buck Mason. Buck Mason's great. So Buck Mason started in LA. They opened in New York. They are now blowing up. I've been with them for years.
They have that store on Mott in Nolita or Mulberry.
They got one in Flatiron.
Oh, I didn't
They
know
got one
that.
in Flatiron.
Okay.
Just really, really cool brand. And Suit Supply.
Suit Supply.
Suit Supply. So Suit Supply, if you don't want to go spend $5,000 on a suit, and who blames you, why not spend a $500 on a suit that looks immaculate, perfectly tailored, I believe from Norway, or no, from the Netherlands. And they have everything from suits, shoes, pants, collared shirts, sweaters, jackets. Unbelievable brand. I encourage everybody to check it out. So these are the things that I like to. And by the way, now if you want to get me a birthday present, my birthday's in a few months.
A lot of good tips there. Since this is going to be a media and politics show, best and worst dressed in DC.
Ooh. All right, John Fetterman. Worst.
God, I saw him at the White House Correspondents' Dinner.
Yeah.
And he was wearing a hoodie with a bow tie screen printed on it.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, you went through the effort to buy a stupid hoodie with a bow tie on it.
Yeah.
Wear a suit.
Yeah.
It's not hard. You can find one that fits.
I get it. I get why he's doing it.
It's a shtick.
But it's. I mean, who wants to see shorts on him? Okay.
I don't need to see his ankles.
I don't need to see that.
No.
No. It's like when Chris Christie went to the beach wearing sandals. Never.
To be honest,
great sight.
in fairness, he was at the beach.
Maybe
No.
so.
No
Not in my world. Not in my world. I'm a dictator.
All right, worst.
Best dressed.
Best dressed.
You know who I think is actually what fits him well?
Yeah.
Eric Adams. Have you ever looked at his suits? Have you ever looked at how
Turkish cotton.
It fits. Okay. Can we just end there? I mean, that was great. That was great. It fits him really well.
Yeah.
And by the way, great casual dresser, Obama.
Oh.
Really, really
Yeah.
solid. Really solid.
He
And by
wears
the way,
that rag and bone bomber jacket.
do you know who dressed great back in the day?
No.
Hope Hicks. You ever see the way she dressed?
Yeah.
I mean, she became
A lot of Ralph.
A lot of Ralph. She wore, and by the way, Milani dress is great too. But like she wore the aviators. So you know, I look around. I look around.
We're gonna have to do a special fashion episode of Spin Room.
Great. Done. Oh, I actually like that.
Right?
That's good.
Yeah, you can do a ranking of Washington outfits.
Oh,
Yeah.
this is what I needed. This was the most value added of the whole show.
Jesse Weber, the show is Spin Room. You can watch it on Mediaite's YouTube. Thank you so much for coming on Press Club.
Thanks
I really
for having
appreciate
me.
it.
Appreciate it.